Podcast. Presented by XFL2K.com. With your host, Tron Hawkins.
Welcome to This is the XFL Podcast. I'm your host, Tron Hawkins, and this is my 4th episode. I want to thank everybody for listening to me. Again, I'm just a man on a phone and some headphones. But I've had a lot of listens. Between the 3 shows, I've had almost 100 listens, which don't seem like a lot. But for a guy just recording out of his bedroom late at night, it's a big deal. This has been probably the most highly anticipated episode. Everybody was asking me when it was going to come out. It's going to be a Cliff Notes history of football in St. Louis. It's not going to be 100% full detail just because there's just so much to go over. I got work in the morning. It's midnight here in Georgia. But I'm excited to go over this. A couple things. First off, this is episode 4. Episode 5, I'll be going over the history of, the XFL 2001. I'm going to call it 2001 of football, SC. And then episode 6 is going to be me talking about some expansion ideas with XFL. It's going to be about 4 teams. It's like a slow build, what the next 4 teams could be if they decided to go to a 12-team league. So that's going to be what the next few episodes are going to be over. It's a slow news period, getting close to Christmas time and everything, so I'm going to record all those this week. Probably take a couple weeks off for the holidays, gear up for 2019, the long off season that is going to be 2019 for the XFL. Okay, so St. Louis football. I'm going to start with the Cardinals. And I know you're thinking, St. Louis Cardinals, what a creative name. You're right. I don't know why they didn't really name them that, even though there's already a St. Louis Cardinals there. Before they moved to St. Louis, there was Chicago Cardinals. Chicago had 2 teams, the Bears and the Cardinals, and they moved to St. Louis. They moved there in 1960 and stayed till 1987. The first home game was at Sportsman Park against the Giants on October 2nd, 1960. And after that, let's see here, I'm sorry. After about 5 years there, they moved into Busch Stadium, which is where the Cardinals played. Back then it wasn't uncommon for a football team and a baseball team to share a stadium. So that's crazy how they both had 2 teams named by the Cardinals. Again, they wasn't named that to begin with. They was the Chicago Cardinals. So that's kind of crazy. This is insane. 28 years they was there. 28 years they was there. They only made the playoffs 3 times. The 74, 75, and 82 season. Never hosting any of the playoff games or winning any of the playoff games. And little crazy fact here, in St. Louis, the Cardinals, they won 187 games, lost 202, and had 13 ties. The winning percentage was 481, but it's still higher than the Chicago Cardinals and the Arizona Cardinals had. So they had a higher winning percentage as the St. Louis Cardinals, so they had either of the 2 before or after. So, Violet Bidwell married a St. Louis businessman after she inherited the Chicago Cardinals, and that's why they ended up in St. Louis. So they couldn't compete with the Chicago Bears. The Bidwell family still owns the Cardinals. They, I know that from All or Nothing with the Arizona Cardinals. They still own the team. So I had a good drink. It's crazy. In 1960, the 12 owners approved they moved to St. Louis, and they was in Chicago for 62 years. They was called the Big Red and the Football Cardinals, or the Gridbirds, in order to avoid confusion with the baseball teams. He had the baseball Cardinals and the football Cardinals, kind of like the New York Giants and the New York Football Giants. Back when the New York Giants was a baseball team, some people still call it the New York Football Giants. St. Louis hadn't had a team since the early days of the NFL, and they was difficult to sell to begin with. They held practice in the city park when they first moved there, so you had this whole football team just practicing in a city park. In the first year there, let me see here. Yeah, in 1961 when they broke even at 7-7. Violet Bidwell Wolfner died in 1962, and her sons Bill and Charles took over. They was competitive in the 60s, but they never achieved any playoff appearances during the decade. The Cardinals started out 7-7 their first year there. The NFL had won 14 games that season to compete with the AFL, but then they fell to 4-9-1 in 1962. Went 9-5 in '63, but missed the playoffs because the playoff season was different back then. Let's skip ahead a little bit here. The Bidwells considered moving the team to Atlanta because they wanted a new stadium. The city was planning the construction one. However, St. Louis persuaded them to stay with the promise of a stadium, which would become Bush Memorial Stadium. The Falcons, went to Atlanta. The Wisconsin team went to Atlanta and became the Falcons. Crazy enough, though, the St. Louis basketball team moved to Atlanta and became the Hawks. So Atlanta and St. Louis had this weird history together, which I didn't know about the Hawks, and I'm in Georgia, not a big basketball fan. And let's see, in the 68 season, they finished 9-4-1, second in the Eastern Conference, but a victory by the Browns over the Giants denied them a playoff spot. Because the one tie was with the Browns. It's crazy how, if you look at this, they had good records, but had better records in the same conference or division to keep them from going to the playoffs. In 1965, they went 4-1, and that evaporated into a 5-9 finish. The Cardinals, even now, they're like lovable losers. I mean, they're not having a great season. They're wasting talent. I mean, think about it. They wasted Larry Fitzgerald and David Johnson. I'm sure back then, the fans were thinking, damn, they're wasting talent. Even back in the 60s. Something about this Cardinals franchise that's cursed even to this day. So, let's skip ahead to the 70s. Oh, man. In 1969, St. Louis fell back to 4-9-1, but the season saw the debut of Roger Worley, a star safety out of Missouri who played 14 seasons with the Cardinals and was elected to the Hall of Fame in 2007. So they have some Hall of Famers, which I'll go over them here in a minute. So in 1970, they got moved to the NFC East Division, which is crazy now to think about because the Cardinals out west, but being in St. Louis, which is crazy because St. Louis is going to be in the Eastern Division of the XFL. They posted 3 consecutive shutouts in November, first time that's ever happened by any team there. They shut down the Oilers, Patriots, and Cowboys. But again, they collapsed down the stretch, losing December games to the Giants, Lions, and Washington. They finished 8-5-1 and out of the playoffs. They had good records. These St. Louis teams had good records, but they always had better records in the division. They started off hot and fell off. It's like they couldn't sustain their momentum. And you would think that they would be able to sustain it, considering that, they had good players. Let's see. Sorry. Then from 1971 to 1973, they went 4-9-1 each one of those seasons. How the hell do you have a tie? This team has more ties than any other team I think I've ever seen. I know it was a different time then; they didn't have overtime, but damn, every season since they had a tie, and that's what kept them out of the playoffs and making it a bad record. In 1974, they finally made the playoffs. They raced out to a 7-0 record, won the NFC East Championship, the first division title. In St. Louis, because they swept the Redskins. But back then, the playoffs, the division champions rotate between home field advantage, regardless of the record. And that year, they didn't get a home playoff game. They lost because the NFC champions, it was their turn to go on the road. They lost that year to the Vikings. They was up 7-0, went to go kick a field goal, missed it. This is back when Minnesota played outside. And they ended up losing, they ended up losing 30-14. So that's kind of depressing. But if they hadn't missed that field goal, they would have been up 10-0 at halftime. You know how momentum is in football. Momentum, you got to keep it going. They had to keep it going, and they didn't. Again, this seems like a theme with the St. Louis Cardinals team. They have momentum, and they can't keep it going. On Twitter, somebody said there's going to be a lot of kiss you and Valium talking about when they listen to this, and it's true. I mean, there is a lot of just stuff to be sad about for the Cardinals team. It's like they're right there. They're right there. They're right there at the precipice of being a good team, and they somehow just break the fans' hearts. They either have a good start, and then it just goes away and it evaporates, or they get to where they want to be and then they just blow it. It's just kind of crazy, and I get it. I get it because I'm a Falcons fan. Like, that's what they do to us now, and a Georgia fan. So I mean, I get y'all's heartbreak. I get y'all's heartbreak up there in St. Louis. And I'll talk more about my family having family in St. Louis when I get to the Rams here in just a little bit. This period of the franchise was characterized by close, exciting games, come from high nail biters, and several frustrating near misses, like I've been over. The press and the league fans began calling them the Cardiac Cardinals. The stars from the 70s was Worley, Mel Gray, the wide receiver, and running backs Terry Metcalf and Jim Otis. On Thanksgiving 1976, the Cardinals suffered a controversial loss to the Dallas Cowboys. Cardinals tight end J.V. Kane was running parent game in a route, was shoved out of the end zone by the Dallas by a Dallas defensive back with what was obvious interference, but no penalty was called. Again, this seems like what happens to the Cardinals: close calls, and just being right there. And with the loss, they was thrown the division lead, and they never gained it. They became the first ever NFC team to get 10 wins and not make the playoffs. Y'all get right there. Like, it seems like y'all have been right there this whole time in St. Louis with the Cardinals. This Cardinals team seemed like it could be, a dynasty. And it just didn't. It just didn't happen for y'all. It's like y'all right there at it. In 77, they won. They started off slow, won 6 games, but then Bob Greasy destroyed them on Thanksgiving, 55-14, and then that was the first of 12 straight losses, which began kind of the decline of the Cardinals. They just didn't. The Cardinals experienced several poor drafts starting in 1978, and unfortunate moves in general. In the late 70s, they picked a damn kicker, Steve Little, in the first round, and then he ended up being paralyzed in 1980 automobile accident. Let's see what happened. They had they had 3 winning seasons from 1982 to 1984. They the heart and soul of the squad of the team was Neil Lomax, Roy Green, and Otis Anderson. Which Otis Anderson, was a great running back. He ended up playing in 2 Super Bowls with the Giants and was Super Bowl 25 MVP. So, again, y'all had good players there. Y'all had it there. And for some reason it just never clicked all together. Like, the stars didn't align. And I get that. As a Georgia sports fan, hell, it took our soccer team. It took our damn soccer team to give us a championship in this state again. Damn Braves was kind of like y'all going into the playoffs and then losing somehow. So I get the heartbreak. In 1985, they started out 3-1, but finished 5-11. So it leads all to 1986 and 1987, the final season for the Cardinals in St. Louis. They hired Gene Stallin, a former assistant of Tom Landry, to be there. They finished 4-11-1 in 1986, but improved to 7-8 in 1987. Falling just 1 win shy of the playoffs, which is crazy back then. Let's see. The overall, what led them from leaving St. Louis is just them being mediocre, combined with the old stadium, caused the game attendance to dwindle. And the Bidwells decided to move the team. They had 3 choices in mind: Baltimore, Phoenix, and Jacksonville. The Cardinals fans, even though they wasn't many still there, was unhappy about losing their team. Bill Bidwell, proving for his safety, stayed away from several of the 1987 home games. The last home game was 1987, or December 13th, 1987, when the Cardinals won, actually, over the Giants in front of 29,000 people. Not a whole lot. On March 15th, 1988, the NFL team owners voted to allow Bidwell to move the Cardinals to Phoenix, which is where they're now. There was the Phoenix Cardinals for a while, but now they are the Arizona Cardinals. So let's scroll on down here for a minute. Like I said, they made the playoffs 3 times. They won the division twice in 74 and 75, and then they made the playoffs again in 1982. All losses, all blowout losses. In 74, they lost in the division round to the Vikings 30-14. And 1975, they lost to the Rams 35-23, and then they got blew out by the Packers in 81, 41-16. All of them on the road, never had a home playoff game. They had 5 Hall of Famers there. Larry Wilson, the free safety. He played from 1960 to 1972. He got inducted in 78. Don Maynard was there as wide receiver, 1973. Roger Worley. Dan Deerdorf, which he is I remember him as an announcer on CBS. And Jackie Smith, the tight end. So, what do I think about the Cardinals? I think y'all just had bad luck. I think y'all had a good team, good players. But, between I don't want to say crappy owners. But, I mean, from the time y'all, in 27 years, y'all had 9 coaches. Y'all had 9 coaches in 27 years. When somebody like Landry's was with the Cowboys for 30 years? I mean, it's crazy. It's unstable. There's coaches going in and out. Y'all played close games. Y'all had near misses. Y'all had good records. It's just it was in the wrong time. Y'all was in the wrong place at the wrong time and just couldn't get over the hump. I mean, y'all had 8-9 wins, but finished second in the division. It's like y'all lost to the team that y'all needed to be in the division, and that was the tiebreaker. Y'all lost the tiebreaker, it seemed like every single time, and it's heartbreaking. And I'm sure there's still Cardinals fans out there today who remember being that close and just letting it slip away. And it had to be, y'all had to think every year was y'all's season, because it's like, okay, we're going to build on this. And it seemed like every time they had a good record and went to go build on it next year, they went from 9 wins to 4 wins. And then 4 wins back to 7, and then y'all get back to 9, miss the playoffs, go back to 4 wins and a tie. Like, it's just like y'all, it was a roller coaster. Only won 2 division championships in y'all's time there and had 3 playoffs appearances. And y'all had to share a stadium with a baseball team, which back then, nowadays, it don't happen a whole lot. But back then it was normal. But I'm sure it was kind of tough going with a second Cardinals in town. Because the St. Louis, it's a football city, but to me it's always been a baseball city. That will change, though, when the Rams and Kurt Warner come in town. And I'm about to start talking about the greatest show on turf in the next segment. Again, though, I feel bad for the Cardinals fans. I'm sure there's some of y'all still out there probably having just flashbacks of those close calls that y'all had. And so the next thing we're going to talk about the St. Louis Rams. And I've never seen a team go from championship to 2 Super Bowls to championship to just completely moving again. So we're going to talk about St. Louis Rams next. All right, so now let's talk about the St. Louis Rams. Y'all got the Rams team in 1995. It was crazy because before that, y'all were trying to get an expansion team, and the team name would have been the St. Louis Stallions. But those teams ended up going to Jacksonville and Carolina, which is the Jaguars and the Panthers today. So y'all ended up getting LA's team. I don't know why y'all keep getting teams, but y'all kept getting LA Rams back in 1995. Believe it or not, y'all played at Bush Memorial Stadium, same place as the Cardinals did. We all played against Saints. Y'all didn't play in the Trans World Dome, which is now known as was Edward Jones Dome, now known as the Dome at America's Center, which is where the St. Louis XFL team play. Y'all moved there November 12th of that year against the Panthers, believe it or not. Y'all ended up being very good in St. Louis. I remember my uncle lived in St. Charles, and he was a big Rams fan. For Christmas one year, he got me the Kurt Warner book. It is crazy how this man went from bagging groceries and playing arena ball to Super Bowl MVP and MVP in the league. So we're going to skip through the first few years and just go straight to the big stuff here in St. Louis. Dick Vermeil became coach. The only mistake he made as head coach was drafting Lawrence Phillips with the 6th overall pick in the 96 draft. Because that made it where Jerome Bettis would get traded to the Steelers for just draft picks. It became one of the most lopsided trades in history because Bettis ended up just being a killer. I mean, a killer player for the Steelers. Think about the greatest show on earth if you had Falk and Bettis. I mean, that's thunder and lightning if I've ever seen it. I mean, that would have been just speed and hammer. That team, I mean, they're already great, but that would have put them over the top for sure. I'm sorry. Dick Vermeil did not draft him. Coach Brooks did. Vermeil, though, was trying to keep him around, though. He cried, saying, he gave him chance after chance. And we all know Lawrence Phillips' story now. He's recently passed away in the last few years. Vermeil's first 2 seasons was kind of unsuccessful. Phillips was cut from the team mid-97. As a draft bust. So that leads us to 1999. The greatest show on turf. So Trent Green, they acquired him and Marshall Faulk in 2 separate trades. In the preseason, though, Green would blow out his ACL. Was going to miss the entire season. Vermeil vowed, though, that the Rams would play good football behind the backup 28-year-old Arena Football Leaguer and NFL Europe player, a little man named Kurt Warner. A lot of people thought, Kurt Warner, this no-name guy who was just bagging groceries a few weeks ago, is going to fill in for Trent Green. A lot of people thought that he was going to finish with a worst record in the league, even below the newly expansioned Cleveland Browns. Kurt Warner's success was the biggest story in 99. He led the offense called the greatest show on turf. He captured he captured the Offensive Player of the Year. He captured the MVP. Marshall Faulk won Offensive Player of the Year. They was a juggernaut. The league has never seen a team that explosive before. They finished 1999 at 13-3. It's the second best regular season record the Rams ever had. They went on to defeat Randy Moss and the Vikings 49-37. They go to the first NFC title game since 89 when they was in LA. They would play the Buccaneers, and this is a couple years before the Buccaneers shut people down, but their defense was still good then. The Rams didn't do a whole lot in the NFC title game. Like the Buccaneers slowed them down. The Rams didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to do. I remember watching this game, but the Rams ended up winning 11-6 because Kurt Warner threw 1 touchdown to Ricky Proehl. He made a one-handed catch. And that's all he needed. It was 11-6. The greatest show on turf got stifled, and they would go on. And I remember this. To me, this is one of my favorite games ever. They went on to Super Bowl 34 to play in Atlanta against Tennessee Titans. Atlanta that year, this Super Bowl is one of the reasons why we didn't get a Super Bowl again until this year. There was a damn snow and ice storm that time. So like St. Louis probably was like, oh, we're right at home then. We come here to Atlanta to expect, I don't want to say tropical weather because it's not, but mild weather for this time of year then. The Super Bowl was in January then. But no, they get a damn ice storm. They play the Titans, who had also relocated. So there's two teams who relocated playing each other in the Super Bowl. A lot of people are going to say Super Bowl 51 was the best Super Bowl ever. With the Patriots come back against the Falcons, and as a Falcons fan, it makes me sick to my stomach even talking about it. But to me, this is the best Super Bowl ever. Kurt Warner and them, I mean, they went back and forth. Kurt Warner, he played well in this game. Really, really well. They was up 16-0 at one point. Tennessee comes back. The tie the game 16-16. And then on the very next play, the very next drive, Kurt Warner throws a 73-yard bomb to the one and only Isaac Bruce. On the very next play, Tennessee ties the game. He goes, you know what? Screw this. We're going to win this now. 73-yard bomb to Isaac Bruce, the third member of what I call the triplets of the greatest show on turf. And then, with a minute 53 left, Titans get the ball, and they're just trying to do a last-minute drive. They get to the 10-yard line with 6 seconds left. McNair throws the ball to Kevin Dyson. He was 1 yard short. The play is known in St. Louis as the tackle. Mike Jones brought him down just 18 inches shy of the goal line, ended the game, and Coach Dick McMill gave him and the Rams their first ever Super Bowl victory. Warner was named MVP. He had a fantastic game that Super Bowl. Let's look up his stats. I'm sorry. Again, this is Cliff Notes. I'm trying to go over a quick history of football in St. Louis, and it's fascinating how close y'all were as the Cardinals. Y'all get the Rams back, and this man that many people never heard of comes into y'all's lives on an accident, literally an accident, and just dominates for y'all, and one of those fun defenses ever. Isaac Bruce caught 6 passes for 162 yards, the third highest in Super Bowl history, and a touchdown. Torrey Holt had 7 catches for 109 yards, the most ever by a rookie. They became the 4th pair of teammates to ever have 100 yards receiving in a Super Bowl. Marshall Faulk only had 17 rushing yards, but gained 90 receiving on 5 catches. Let's see here. It's also only the second to date, the most recent Super Bowl with neither team turn over the ball. So it's crazy. They played good, clean football. It was a fun game. No controversy. It was just good football. It was the first Super Bowl of 2000. And to me, it's still the best game I've ever seen. One of my favorite Super Bowls of all time. I was actually rooting for Tennessee to win because it was closer to me. But Kurt Warner's story is just crazy how you went from bagging groceries to Super Bowl champion. It was storybooking. You can't make that up. There should be a movie based on Kurt Warner. Even now, he's working with NFL Network, and it's all because of this. I mean, he could still be bagging groceries for all we know. And he's here he is. Kurt Warner went 24-45 for 414 yards and 2 touchdowns, a 99.7 rating. Again, the Marshall Faulk got cut down running the ball. I mean, he didn't do hardly anything. So Kurt Warner kind of put it on his shoulders and said, you know what, I'm going to carry this team like I have all year. So a lot of people started talking about a repeat. Because you had this great offense coming back together. And so the question was, can they repeat again? And, Trent Green, of course, left because he's like, there's no place for me to be here because, this ain't today's Philadelphia Eagles where Nick Foles won MVP and he's back up again. They knew then that they had somebody special. So here comes 2000. Dick Vermeil retired. he was replaced with his apprentice and offensive coordinator, Mike Martz, which Mike Martz was the brain behind the greatest show on turf. In his first year as coach, they won their first 6 games and went 7-1 in the first half of the season. So you're like, okay, they're back. The Rams will start doing good. But in the second half, they went 3-5, including a 3-game losing streak. They made the playoffs 10-6. They barely snuck in as the 6th seed and faced the Saints in the wildcard round, and they lost in the Superdome. They was getting beat 31-7, scored 3 state touchdowns, but it fell short. And they lost to the Saints, and it was the Saints' first playoff win in franchise history. However, in 2001, they came back with a vengeance. They went 14-2 in 2001, including going undefeated on the road. For the third straight year, they scored 500 or more points. But they also, this time, had a good defense as well, coached by Lovie Smith, which a lot of y'all know Lovie Smith, and led by Adam Archuleta. In the divisional round that year, they handled Green Bay. They beat the Eagles, who had Donovan McNabb and everything, in the NFC title game, and this led to Super Bowl 36 against the Patriots. The Patriots was kind of like the Rams were a few years before. They had a Cinderella run, including a controversial win against the Raiders that year, 16-13 in the divisional round, known as the Tuck Rule game. I remember this game. It was right after September 11th. Everybody was, America everywhere. The logo was, America. I made a mistake that day, and I want to apologize to everybody in St. Louis. I rooted for the Patriots because I'm like, you know what? It's right after 9/11. We're Patriots. Let's root for the Patriots. The Rams just won 2 years ago. Let somebody new win. If I knew then what I know now about the Patriots and Tom Brady and them, I wish the Rams would have stomped their ass and just ended it before it even started. They look like there's going to be the first dynasty of the 21st century. There was a 14-point favorite. Despite that, the Patriots dominated the game. They shut down the wideouts and running backs. They disrupted the passing game. They also hit Kurt Warner every time they could, even led to a Ty Law interception. But the Rams came back, tied the game, 17-17. But the Patriots came down the field, and here comes Adam Vinatieri hitting the game-winning field goal to win 2017. The game later became known as Spygate. It came from the Spygate, that saying that they taped the Rams walk-through practice prior to the game. But they later found out that there was no tape. But the Spygate, and even, the Patriots cheating, that kind of started then. So not only did the dynasty start for the Patriots then, instead of the Rams, but the myth, well, actually, ain't a damn myth because they done it, but the Patriots cheating started then as well. Young quarterback Mark Bolger kind of took in after Kurt Warner got hurt. And then he kind of took over because he kept making mistakes. Kurt Warner in 2003 lost his starting job to Bolger. And he had 6 fumbles in the opener against the Giants in 2003. They go 12-4 under Bolger in 2003, and they got destroyed. Actually, they didn't get destroyed. The Panthers ended up beating them 29-23 in double overtime, and the Panthers went on to win the NFC title. After that, the Rams were never the same. They couldn't fill the dome after that. The magic was gone. And they went from a playoff drought from 2005 to 2015. I'm sorry. And they just couldn't find their footing anymore. And in 2010, the worst thing could have happened. Stan Kroenke took over. He took over in 2010 from the then majority owners Rosenblum and Rodriguez. And after that, it became the Sam Bradford and Jeff Fisher era. That's where the Rams went down. They went 1-15 through 9. They drafted Sam Bradford to the 1 pick. He never could stay healthy. The best thing that happened then, though, the Rams' all-time leading rusher is not Marshall Faulk like you think it would be. It was Steven Jackson. Again, I was talking about earlier about St. Louis Cardinals wasting talent. They did that with Steven Jackson. The man never got to play in the playoffs. Think about that. The leading rusher of the franchise, until Todd Gurley probably takes it over because it's still a connected franchise. Steven Jackson never got to play in a playoff game. Well, not as a Ram. He ended up playing in one for the Falcons, so that's good. But they wasted. They just wasted talent. 2015, the final season in St. Louis, they traded Sam Bradford for Nick Foles. That was a disaster. He ended up going back to Philadelphia, winning the Super Bowl. Todd Gurley arrived in the final year. That did not help any either. And this it was just time to move. The stadium, Kroenke wanted a new stadium because the dome is old, and he wanted a new stadium, and he just couldn't get one. They had a deal that the Edward Jones Dome had to be in the top 25% of the league, or they could leave. So that's the deal they made, and it wasn't. They decided that they had to pay, the city of St. Louis had to pay the Rams attorney fees. It was about $2 million. There was no interest for the Rams, and the city, county, and state officials providing any funding to the Edward Jones Dome to get it at least. If they couldn't get a new stadium, they at least wanted it remodeled. They said no. They wasn't going to do it. The Rams, Kroenke and them pissed off the city. They violated the lease of the dome by having a regular season game played in London, which violated it because not all the home games was at home. So they violated the lease from that. Kroenke in 2014 snuck and bought 60 acres of land next to the Forum in Los Angeles, and that's where the stadium's being built as we speak. And then on 2015, the Los Angeles Times reported that Kroenke and the Capital Group was partnering to develop an NFL stadium. They were still in St. Louis while this man is building a stadium in another city. He knew he was leaving. It wasn't about the stadium. It was not about the stadium. It was about going to L.A. He did not want to be in St. Louis. He never wanted to be in St. Louis. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what that motherfucker says. Sorry for my language. I'm not even from St. Louis, and it pisses me off. It's kind of what Oakland's doing now. They're building a stadium in Las Vegas, and they're still in Oakland. Can you imagine watching your team owner build another stadium when they're not worried about putting a winning team out in St. Louis? They never was. He wasn't. It went downhill after he bought the team. Hired Jeff Fisher, Mr. 500, who was an awful coach. In January 4th, 2016, the Rams filed relocation back to LA for the 2016 season. 3 teams opted to move to Oakland, or to move to Los Angeles. Oakland and the Chargers. The Rams and the Chargers went. The Chargers later ended up going. They're going to be sharing a stadium come 2021. And on January 12th, on January 12th, they won the right to relocate to LA. It turned out that him and the Chargers were just going to pair up together. So that's how the St. Louis team died that day. Went 14-2, 13-3, 12-4, and then after that, just 1 win, 7 wins, 2 wins. I mean, they just died after that. Retired numbers, of course, Marshall Faulk, Isaac Bruce, and Jackie Slater was the retired numbers. Number 28, 78, and 80, respectively. It's St. Louis Rams players in the Hall of Fame: Jackie Slater, Jerome Bettis, Aeneas Williams, Marshall Faulk, Orlando Pace, who was a great player, first-round pick in 97, and Kurt Warner. So, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, Marshall Faulk, Kurt Warner. We're never going to see another just team like that again. Like, we're never going to see just that much offense. I say that, but we're kind of getting there. We're never going to see that kind of team again, but we're kind of getting it now. Maybe in a better version with Mahomes. I guess it used to be Hunt, but not anymore. Mahomes, at the time Hunt, Hill, and Kelsey. They're going to be the new kind of offense to run by. People in LA probably thought they was getting the Showtime kind of ran with golf and them, but they just lost to the Eagles with Nick Foles. So here we are, 2020. St. Louis is finally getting back into professional football. By this time, it'd be about, 4 or 5 years since y'all had a pro team. And here y'all are about to get another pro team. Best of luck to y'all. I'm sorry I didn't go into full detail. This is just kind of a Cliff Notes version of what happened in St. Louis and why the XFL needs to come there. Y'all don't have a team. Y'all the only team in the XFL to not have an NFL team. Go out there, fans. Support your team. That's kind of why y'all slacking. That's probably why that ain't the reason why they left LA, but y'all didn't help any, probably not coming out to the games. Just show up, be loud, come February 8th and 9th, 2020, and show your support for this team, because y'all never know when y'all might get another pro team. Go out there and show the NFL that they made a mistake sending the Rams to LA, and that y'all deserve another team when the time comes. Hell, y'all might be the St. Louis Jaguars one day. You never know. So go out there, show your support for your team. And I hope I'm going to be rooting for St. Louis. St. Louis is probably going to be my XFL team because y'all the little underdog. Y'all the only one without NFL team. Go out there and show them that they made the right choice giving y'all a team come 2020. Thank you for joining me on this episode. It's been my longest episode so far. Go back to the other 3 episodes. Leave me, like on Facebook. This is the XFL Podcast. Follow me on Twitter at @is_XFL. Leave me a review, good or bad, and just tell your friends about me. Again, it's a rough around the edges kind of podcast. It's just me. It's just my phone. It's just my headphones. But I'm trying. On the next episode, we're going to go over the XFL 2001, a football odyssey. It's going to be a wild ride. So thank you for joining me, and good night.